I think it's also important to remember that while we discuss it as that, there are other implications to the measures that we pass. So the quote-unquote syntax bill also affects timeshares, and the property tax bill that we passed in the same measure also affects persons in our community who now exercise certain exemptions from property taxes. So there were 5 of us, as you may recall: Senator Alicia Chucky Hansen, Senator Jeanette Millen Young, Senator Terrence Positive Nelson, Senator Dwayne DeGraff, and I. We voted not to pass the measure. Now, I think it's very important that people understand the measure. And I hear some people in the community saying, well, this discussion created this divide where people think it's about the business people. Or the people who drink and smoke, and so I don't drink and smoke, so then they could pay the tax, and it's not a big deal because they shouldn't be drinking and smoking anyway, right? And in one of the justifications of the bill, I heard one of the majority members explain that it's only 25 cents added to a beer. Now, I actually wanted us to look at an actual example of how this is going to work, right? It's correct that it amounts to 25 cents on a beer if we're looking at, say, an imported beer like Heineken, right? Mm-hmm. But the 25 cents, because the new excise tax is going to go from 208 to 608 on a case of 24. So if you just divide $6 by 24, you get 25 cents.
Yeah.
But what we have to look at is that is the 25 cents at the point of importation. The person bringing it into the territory pays that 608. Now, they're going to add the 608 to the product, and they're going to put their profit margin against that, right?
Gross receipts.
And then that's going to pass on to the wholesaler who buys it from that importer.
Yeah.
And that wholesaler is going to put on their profit margin on that new cost. And then when it gets to the other retailer, the same thing. And so that when you or I go into the establishment and purchase the product, we're no longer talking about 25 cents. So in an actual example that I did, right? The case of Heineken. It comes in, the importer assesses it, gets it at $13, right? They add $2, covers all the shipping, freight, etc. And then 208, the present tax. So they now have the case at $17.08. If they mark it up, general markup by 25%, they've added $4.27 to it. It is now $21.35 when it goes to the wholesaler. That wholesaler marks it up 25% again, another $5.34. It's now $26.69. In the case of this level, you're looking at a wholesaler, like say a merchant, it costs you less, a Price Mart. I go to a little bar that buys the beer from Price Mart, as an example, one of those wholesalers, at $26.69. They then retail a Heineken for $4 a bottle. If you go now and you use the example, the importer now bringing it in the same $13, the same $2 for shipping and freight. Now the excise tax is $608. You're now starting at a cost of $21.08 for the same case that was $17.08. When they do their 25%, they mark it up $5.27. It's now $26.35. And when my person buys it from there and it's marked up at 25% again, they're now paying $32.94 a case from the $26.69 under the old tax. So $26.69 under the old tax, $32.94 under the new tax. It means that they now have to put on about $1 on the cost of the beer. Now, you might, the other thing is to not get carried away now, leaving your example at the beer, because the wholesaler might buy 1,000 cases of the beer. That's an increase of $5 to him on every case. Now, he has to look at, that wholesaler isn't carrying just Heineken. He's carrying domestic beers that are also increased. He's carrying cigarettes, which are also increased. So when that wholesaler now has to look at the increased cost of bringing in all those items, they have to look at probably reductions in people, right? And then you're looking at what has happened in some of the instances where these taxes have been assessed, where consumption declines. So if you're faced with increasing costs and declines in consumption, then you have to look at your business model and how it is you're going to deal with increased costs and your other responsibilities.
Well, you have meticulously evaluated this and analyzed it, and you're coming up with your justification for voting the way you voted.
Mm-hmm.
Why isn't the rest of the body doing this?
Well, the majority senators, they decided, I'd have to say, to be factually correct, that they did reduce the percentages that the governor sent down initially in his bill. But I think what troubles me about the whole approach is this. If I come to you and I begin a discussion and I say, okay, we need to increase the number of cruise ship calls to St. Thomas, you might say, okay, well, how do we do that? I'm just going along with a stream of thinking. If you then turn to me and say, well, Roach, I don't think that's what we need to do. We have enough ships coming here. Mm-hmm. What we need to do is think about provisioning ships, right? Another avenue of raising revenue.
Yes, yeah.
Or we have to think about the 40% of the cruise visitors who don't come ashore. Mm-hmm. How do we get more of them to come ashore when they come here? How do we increase the spend that they participate in when they come here? So in this example, what you've done is you've just taken what the governor sent and adjusted the percentages. So you are not employing your own revenue generating skills and your options about approaching revenue raising. You're simply going in step. Well, you say raise it 12, I say no, I raise it 4. Mm-hmm. But still, the paradigm is the same. You've not changed the way of thinking. And I think to give all of us credit, I think we all have revenue raising measures that we need to come together and sit and discuss. I hear there was a show with the majority leader, and the majority leader said that we haven't come to them. And fine, the majority leader can say that. The president of the legislature can't say that, however. The president of the legislature should recognize that he represents all of the members of the body, and so he should be interested in bringing everybody together in a critical time like this as well, to put all of our heads together so that the revenue generating agenda of the legislature is led by the legislature and not by the executive. I think that's the position that those of us in the minority have taken.
Now that you have said that, are you getting, or the body, the entire body, getting the access that you deserve to the financial information so informed decisions could be made?
Well, and that's a good question, because I think there is information that is not necessarily shared among all of us. Mm-hmm. And one of the other pressing issues that we wanted to talk about has to do with this Rodriguez case and now special election and now new campaigning and this issue of who should be seated in this seat. And I wanted to speak to that because there is some misunderstanding of the position that the minority has taken, and I know that I have taken in the legislature. You know, there's an adage that says the doctor shouldn't be like his own patient or something like that.
Yeah.
Okay, well, as a lawyer, I believe in that. I don't think you should be your own lawyer.
Yeah, and generally it doesn't happen that way.
Exactly.
Yes, right, yeah.
I have great respect for the legal counsel of the legislature. Mm-hmm. And every time there's an issue that I have a doubt or a question about, I go straight to the legal counsel and I request an opinion. In 2 instances, the legal counsel of the legislature has said that this issue regarding the Senator-elect Kevin Rodriguez is an issue for the legislature to resolve. What I have said in my public statement, so some people interpret that as you're advocating for a candidate or you support Rodriguez. No, that's not the issue. The issue is that once the 32nd legislature came into being, The question as to who its members are and whether they meet the qualifications as set out by the Organic Act, the Revised Organic Act of the Virgin Islands, is an issue to be determined by the legislature. And there is no authority for the legislature to delegate that authority to any other branch of government. And if you read...
I couldn't agree with you more.
You know, if you read the opinions of the courts, they all have references to the failure of the legislature to act.
Yes.
And the reason why I wanted to tie this in with information, could you imagine this? The president and the members of the 32nd legislature were sued by Rodriguez. The president has yet to convene a meeting with all of the members of the body to determine or even to discuss what our legal position should have been. They went about their business, they hired outside counsel, they prepared position papers and briefs for the courts. Those were not distributed, those were not discussed with the minority members. You know how it works. A majority forms and a majority runs the legislature.
Yeah.
But if you look at the discussions in the provisions of the Organic Act, none of them speak to a majority determining a caucus, determining the qualifications of the elect. None of them speak to a majority being able to decide that with regard to such a critical matter, we will abide by the court. Whoever heard of such a thing? Power is not given away. You don't give away the power.
Co-equal branches of government.
Exactly.
Yes.
You do not give away the power that is given to your branch of government. And so I wanted to clarify to those people. In fact, what I did was I had a press release sent out and I shared widely the legal counsel's opinion, because I think that those of us in our community who are interested in these issues and interested in maintaining co-equal branches, checks and balances between the branches, should know what a reasoned legal expert on legislative matters considered and determined as good guidance for the legislature to follow. And I believe this matter isn't done. We looked at the newspaper this morning and there's a new suit.
That's right,
where,
new suit,
where he's exercised his appeal right
That's
to take that to the Third Circuit Court of Appeals. And so there's going to be a cloud hanging over this whole process.
The legislature should have acted, and they did not act. And that's unfortunate.
It is.
Now, does the minority have an agenda that they're putting forward that could be heard on the floor and maybe get into law, sign into law?
Well, we actually prepared. We went to legal counsel again. We discussed what should be the course of action for the legislative body. The council suggested, and as we in our discussion, that we prepare a resolution to that effect, and the resolution would require the legislature to convene a session. And so this is not just an issue of seating Rodriguez. This is an issue of actually convening a process where Rodriguez and his counsel, whoever had a differing position, in this case the plaintiffs, Soro, etc., who took the case to court, they would be a part of the process, and the legislature would consider what is laid out in the Organic Act as the criteria for members of the body. One, has the person attained the age of 21 years? Is that person a qualified voter in the Virgin Islands? Has that person been a bona fide resident of the Virgin Islands for at least 3 years, next preceding the date of his election? Has that person been convicted of a felony, of a crime involving moral turpitude, and has not received a pardon restoring his or her civil rights? And is that person a federal employee or a person employed in the legislative, executive, or judicial branches of the government of the Virgin Islands?
Senator,